Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Hello everyone, welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will be discussing the daily edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 4th December 2020. And the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. Now, after looking at the topics that we are going to discuss, let us look at the key takeaways from today's discussion. Now, on the article that is present on page number 7, that is related to India's neighborhood policy, we will try and understand the complexity of India's neighborhood and what are the present challenges because of changing geopolitics in the region. Further, we will look at the issues with the functioning of the SAARC organization and also what India needs to do in order to have a consistent neighbor policy. In the next article that is present on the page number 6, that is the lead article, it talks about the right to privacy, right to marry, and right to freedom of conscience. So, in this regard, we will look at the anti conversion laws that are being passed by different states and how they stand against the constitutional rights that have been provided to the citizens of India. So we will look at this issue of conversion to different religion under marriages vis-a-vis the right to privacy which has been recognized by the Supreme Court of India. And after that we'll look at the issues that are present with the anti-conversion laws in general and also how they impact the rights of the citizens. Further, in the next article that is present on page number 6, which is related to the farmer protests, we will look at this issue of farm bills and the MSP regime. And finally, in the last article, we'll look at the challenges that will be faced in restoring Iranian nuclear deal for the President-elect Joe Biden of United States of America. So let's start with the first article now. Now, this article on page number 7 has been written in the context of recent visits of the Foreign Secretary of India and the National Security Advisor of India to the countries in India's neighborhood. And these visits show a new energy that is visible in India's neighborhood policy. However, the critics have highlighted that in the past there have been various constraints in India's relationship with its neighbors. So, in this backdrop, the article analyzes the need for reworking India's neighborhood policy. So, let us try and understand how complex is India's neighborhood and also why has SAARC taken a backseat in India's regional pursuits and what is its importance as of now. And finally, we'll look at what India needs to do in the future to engage positively with its neighbors. So the points that we discuss here in this article can be important for us from General Studies Paper 2 point of view in the topic International Relations. So first let us start with the complexities of India's neighborhood and how India has been pursuing its policy in its neighborhood and what are the new dynamics that are at play in India's neighborhood, especially in the South Asian region. Now talking about India's neighbors, we all know that India's neighborhood is a very complex one. And that is because it is surrounded by some of the hostile states like Pakistan and also China. Further, India's foreign policy has also received challenges from other neighbors like Nepal and Bangladesh in the past years. So, because of the existing issues of terrorism with Pakistan and the land boundary issues with China, and also some of the political issues with neighbors like Nepal and Bangladesh, India's neighborhood is said to be a complex one. Now, another key aspect of India and its neighboring countries is that the region which constitutes India and its neighbors has the world's largest population. However, one of the problems with this region is that it is the world's least integrated regions and also has deficits in terms of infrastructure, connectivity, and interdependence. Now, this statement is being given regarding India's neighborhood that it is less integrated region because it is not as connected as Europe or the American countries. So, the kind of coordination, connectivity, and interdependence we see in the European countries is clearly not visible in countries that neighbor India. Besides the issues of existing complexities, largest population, and less interdependency, we also know that India and its region is now being exposed to various geopolitical competition dynamics, and they are mainly because of rise of China and the increasing influence of United States of America in this particular region. Now, we all know that China has been aggressively pursuing its dominance in the region by the way of its One Belt, One Road projects and also its increasing influence in the South China Sea, etc. At the same time, we see that US has been trying to counter the influence of China in this region. And for this, it has been increasing its coordination with countries like India and has also created quadrilateral security dialogue and is also participating in Malabar naval exercise. So all these aspects show that there has been increasing geopolitical competition in the India and its neighborhood. So, in this backdrop, the article says that India has realized that there is a need for greater connectivity and integration in the region. And especially, this is required because of the increasing Chinese influence in India's neighborhood. Further, the article says that to check the growing Chinese influence in the neighborhood, India should focus on creating interdependence in the countries in the region. And that will provide India a strategic leverage in terms of bargaining with these countries, and also it will increase India's coordination with the neighboring countries. Further, we note that in the past, India has taken up various connectivity initiatives in terms of energy, interdependence, and infrastructural connectivity, also grants and loans. And we note that they are visible in the initiatives like the Kaladan Multimodal Project, the India Myanmar Thailand Trilateral Highway, and also India has been providing grants and loans to countries like Maldives, which constitute India's neighborhood. However, it is being said that these initiatives of India have mainly been because India has been facing competition with China. And this has made India realize the importance of increasing the connectivity and interdependence in its region. So, although the initiatives that have been taken by India in terms of increasing connectivity and interdependence are a welcome step, it is also being said that these connectivity initiatives will be meaningless if there is lack of economic integration and easy movement of people and capital. And we note that this has been one of the biggest hurdle in the regional integration in the South Asian region. And that has mainly been because of the conflict that is going on between India and Pakistan. So we see that various ambitious connectivity projects like the Tapi pipeline and the international north-south transport corridors have taken a backseat because of such kind of hurdles or the barriers that exist in the India and its neighboring countries. Now, as we all know that there has been lack of integration between India and its neighboring countries, let us look at why SARC, which was seen as one of the key initiatives for better integration in the South Asian region, is taking a back seat in the India's regional pursuits. Now, we all know that SARC is composed of the major South Asian countries like India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, etc. However, experts are saying that the format of SARC is outdated and it does not serve the complex and the fluid regional cooperation agenda any longer. Further, we all know that India has refused to attend the SARC meeting in Pakistan over the issue of terrorism. And at the same time, regarding the question of integration and interconnectivity, both India and Pakistan, which are the key players in the SARC regime, are pursuing different goals. So, as far as Pakistan is concerned, it is pursuing its regional connectivity goals exclusively with China in the form of China Pakistan Economic Corridor. However, we all know that India has issues of sovereignty as far as the Chinese One Belt One Road project is concerned, and as such, India has now started focusing on the Indian Ocean region. Now, due to the different perspectives regarding regional connectivity between India and Pakistan, which are the key players in SARC, this has led to a split of the subcontinent between India and Pakistan, which has effectively stagnated the institution of SARC. In this regard, regarding the initiatives of India in the Indian Ocean region, we all know that India has revived the BIMSTEC, which is the Bay of Bengal initiative for multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation. And also India has revived the BBIN, which is an initiative between Bangladesh, Bhutan, India and Nepal, which aims at quadrilateral framework on motor vehicles and water governance. However, critics have warned that India should understand that India's neighboring countries, other than Pakistan, have shown their interest in the working of the SARC organization. And as such, India should not be averse to the idea of cooperation in the subcontinent by the way of SARC organization. And as such, India should again start cooperating on the SARC platform. Also, the critics argue that if India moves away from SARC, it is quite possible that China can be invited to this forum. And this will again make things more difficult for India. So, although the key members of the SAARC organization have different regional connectivity goals, in the long term, it is advised by the critics that India should not move away from the SAARC organization, and that is because the other members of the SAARC organization beyond India and Pakistan have shown their interest in the functioning of the SAARC in the long run. And also, there is fear of China entering the SAARC organization, and that will impede India's pursuit of regional integration. So, looking at the complexity of India's neighborhood and also the changing geopolitical dynamics and the divergence in the regional connectivity aspirations of India and Pakistan, which are the member of the SAARC, the question arises, do we need to revisit India's neighborhood policy? So, according to this article, the authors say that India's engagement with our neighboring countries should not be episodic. Further, the engagement should not be event oriented and it should be process oriented. And as such, India needs to have a plan for continuous engagement at various levels with its neighboring countries. Besides planning for a continuous engagement with its neighboring countries, India should also make sure that the domestic political considerations do not impact India's foreign policy considerations. And various domestic political issues have been adversely impacting India's foreign policy considerations, especially with regards to Bangladesh and the Citizenship Amendment Act that has been passed by the Government of India, keeping into consideration the domestic political considerations. So, these are few challenges regarding India's neighborhood policy and also what needs to be done by India for having a consistency in its neighborhood policy. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 6 is related to the issue of right to choose one's partner or the right to marry, and at the same time, right of a person to convert to other religion because of such interreligion marriages. So, in this context, the Allahabad High Court, in one of the important verdicts, that is the Salamat Ansari verdict on forced conversions, had held that the freedom to live with a person of one's choice is intrinsic to the fundamental right to life and personal liberty. So, here it was highlighted that if a person wants to marry a person of his choice and accordingly convert to that religion, then it amounts to one's choice. And while announcing its verdict, the Allahabad High Court had invoked the right to privacy that has been provided by the Supreme Court under the Puttaswamy judgment. And at the same time, the Allahabad High Court deliberated that the freedom of conscience and religion that has been provided in Article 25 cannot be examined by the state as its sovereign function. So, here a debate has started regarding the right to marry a person of one's choice and at the same time the right to freedom of conscience. And this issue has once again started because of a recent ordinance that has been passed by the Uttar Pradesh government to stop religious conversions by the way of marriages. So, in this discussion, let us look at the different aspects of right to privacy and right to freedom of conscience. And at the same time, let us look at what are the limitations that have been provided in the right to freedom of conscience. And ultimately, let us look at the anti conversion laws that are passed by the various state governments and what are the issues with such laws. Further, if you look at the previous year questions, you will find that the fundamental rights that have been discussed under Article 21, 19, and Article 25 are particularly important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So, accordingly, if you look at this question, this was asked in the year 2019. And this question read, which article of the Constitution of India safeguard one's right to marry the person of one's choice? And in this, the correct answer was B, that is Article 21. Again, this question that was asked in 2018 was also related to right to privacy. And this has been provided under Article 21 under the Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. Again, if you look at the mains examination, you will find that in 2017 in the General Studies paper 2, the question that was asked read, examine the scope of fundamental rights in the light of latest judgment of Supreme Court on right to privacy. So here also a question has been asked related to right to privacy. So this highlights that this issue of right to privacy vis-a-vis the right to freedom of conscience is a very important aspect for us from the mains examination point of view in the General Studies paper 2 in the topic Constitution and Polity. So let us look at the different aspects of right to privacy, the right to freedom of conscience that has been provided under the Article 25, and what are the issues with the anti-conversion laws that are passed by various state governments. Further, regarding the right to privacy as a fundamental right, you might all be knowing that in the famous 9 judge constitution bench in KS Puttaswamy versus Union of India, the right to privacy has been recognized as an integral part of right to life and personal liberty as has been guaranteed under the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So it was explicitly recognized by a 9 judge constitution bench that right to privacy forms an integral part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. In this regard, the Supreme Court defined different aspects of this right to privacy as a fundamental right. So it includes life and personal liberty are inalienable rights, and these are rights which are inseparable from a dignified human existence. Secondly, the dignity of individual, equality between human beings, and the quest for liberty are the foundational pillars of Indian Constitution. In this regard, privacy is the constitutional core of human dignity. So a clear correlation has been established between privacy and human dignity by this particular judgment of the Supreme Court. Again, privacy includes at its core the preservation of personal intimacies, the sanctity of family life, marriage, procreation, the home, and sexual orientation. Further, privacy also connotes a right to be left alone. Further, the privacy safeguards individual autonomy and recognizes the ability of individual to control vital aspects of his or her life. Personal choices governing a way of life are also an intrinsic part to privacy. Further, privacy protects heterogeneity and recognizes the plurality and diversity of our culture. So, on the one hand, right to privacy is an integral part of human dignity. It is also important and recognizes the plurality and diversity of our culture. Further, the Supreme Court has underscored that the privacy is not lost or surrendered merely because the individual is in a public space. So, even at that point, the right to privacy is an integral part. So, as such, it has been analyzed and defined and included as an essential facet of dignity of the human being. So, we clearly see that Supreme Court has highlighted or given a key importance to right to privacy as an important part of Article 21. Now, as right to marry has been recognized as an integral part under the Article 21 in the Fundamental Rights chapter, the issue that comes up regularly is the issue of conversion after marrying a person of one's individual choice. Now, if a Hindu woman marries a Muslim man and accordingly, if she converts to the Islam religion, then the question here is that is such kind of conversion by the Hindu woman to the Islam religion lawful or not? And this question came in front of the Allahabad High Court on the issue of conversion to different religion under marriage. And the Allahabad High Court had held that marriage is a matter of choice and every adult person has a fundamental right to choose his or her partner. And the conversions under such marriages by free will and choice must not be subjected to state's approval as it will be violative of the constitution if the state interferes in such choices of citizens. So if the conversion in an interreligion marriage is by free will or choice, then it should not be subjected to the approval of the state government or such kind of conversions will be lawful in nature because they are not forced conversions. And we note that the Article 25 of the Indian Constitution expressly protects the choice that individuals make in terms of freedom of conscience. And in addition to the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate one's religion, it also guarantees to every person the freedom of conscience. Now, although the Article 25 guarantees to every person the freedom of conscience, it provides certain restrictions or reasonable restrictions. So, under the Article 25(1), the reasonable restrictions that can be imposed include that the state can regulate such a practice on the grounds of public order, morality, and health. Further, the Article 25 states that the state can regulate or restrict any economic, financial, political, or other secular activity which may be associated with religious practice. So, in this background, two anti conversion laws were made by the state of Madhya Pradesh and Odisha, and these were challenged in the Supreme Court. However, such laws that were created by MP and Odisha in the year 1968 and 67 respectively were upheld by the Supreme Court on the grounds of public order. And the Supreme Court had then held that fundamental right to propagate religion does not include right to convert a person to other religion. However, this debate related to the anti conversion laws has started again because of the recent ordinance that has been passed by the Uttar Pradesh government. Now, the issue here is that when the Supreme Court had upheld the anti conversion laws which were passed by MP and the state of Odisha, at that time, the Supreme Court had not clearly recognized or outlined that the right to privacy is an integral part of the Article 21. And also, right to marry was not explicitly recognized by the Supreme Court as an integral part of Article 21. However, after the Puttaswamy judgment, in which the right to privacy and right to marry has been recognized as an integral part of 21, such kind of conversions or such kind of anti conversion laws have come into question now. And that is mainly because the Uttar Pradesh has passed the Unlawful Conversion of Religion Ordinance 2020. And this ordinance makes not only religious conversions that are forcefully obtained as an offense, but that also declares void any conversion found to be made solely for marriage. Now, as the UP government has passed this ordinance or the legislation, let us look at what are the problems or the issues associated with such anti conversion laws that are passed by various state governments and how they impact the fundamental rights of the individuals. Now, first and foremost problem or the issue that is associated with such anti-conversion laws is that state under such laws can interfere in citizens' personal lives, which the state is already prohibited on the account of various fundamental rights. Further, such anti-conversion laws are seen to be violative of the right to privacy judgment. And we note that this right to privacy judgment has made right to privacy an integral part of right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. Further, right to privacy also includes the sanctity of family life and marriage. Further, another issue with such kind of anti-conversion laws in India is that it results in violation of constitution at times. And this is because every time matters of intimate and personal choice are made vulnerable to the paternal whims of the state. So this means that the personal choice and liberty is adversely impacted because the state tries to intrude into the personal sphere of the person, which has been recognized as an integral part of right to life and personal liberty under Article 21 and which is key to the human dignity that has been recognized by the Indian Constitution. Further, freedom of conscience that has been provided under Article 25 would mean nothing and would take a back seat if every act of religious conversion is going to be presumed illegal unless proven otherwise. So, the presumption of the state that the religious conversions under marriages are illegal in nature stands against the freedom of conscience that has been provided in the Article 25. Further, it reverses the criminal jurisprudence regarding burden of proof. Now, normally what happens is that in criminal cases, the burden of proof is on the prosecution, and there is presumption that a person who is accused of committing an offense is innocent until proven guilty. However, by the passing of such anti conversion laws, the state governments are presuming that a person who has converted to the other religion under marriage is guilty and he has to prove otherwise that he is innocent. So, this stands against the standard criminal jurisprudence practice of burden of proof. And as it has been highlighted here, that the UP ordinance reverses the idea of burden of proof as every religious conversion is presumed illegal unless proven guilty. And as such, the burden is on the person who is carrying out the conversion to prove that it is by their will and is not illegal in nature. So, in the conclusion, the author says that the freedom of conscience would mean nothing if every religious conversion related to marriage is presumed illegal by the state. So, here we have seen different aspects of the right to privacy and the right to freedom of conscience, and also the issues associated with that. And further, we have looked at the various problems and the issues that are associated with anti conversion laws in India. So, these are few important aspects, and with this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 6 has been written in the context of the recent protests that are going on against the three farm acts that have been passed by the Parliament of India. And we note that a controversy has started after the passing of these farm acts. So, in this line, the author argues that the farmers who are based in Punjab and Haryana need not be apprehensive of the dismantling of MSP regime because the author says that the government in the long run is not going to do away with the process of MSP. So, in this regard, let us look at who are the farmers that are protesting against the passing of these farm acts and the arguments provided by the author that the MSP will not be done away by the government of India. And these points can be used in writing answers in the General Studies paper 3 in the topic economic development. Now, presently, if you look at the opposition of these farm bills, they have mainly been opposed by the farmer groups who are from the states of Punjab and Haryana. And the farmers of these states are apprehensive that the passage of these three farm acts would ultimately lead to dismantling of the minimum support price or the MSP regime. And as such, they will be left at the mercy of large corporates. However, the author here says that such an apprehension is more prominent among the farmers in the states of Punjab and Haryana as compared to other states of India. Now, why is it so? So, it is because nearly 88% of the paddy or the rice production and 70% of the wheat production in Punjab and Haryana has been absorbed through the public procurement process under the MSP regime. However, as compared to Punjab and Haryana in other states like the Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Uttar Pradesh, the public procurement has hardly been around 40% of the total produce of the state. And as such, it has been argued that the dismantling of the MSP regime or the public procurement would have higher impact on the farmers based in Punjab and Haryana as compared to other states. And as such, these are the farmers who are apprehensive of the passage of these three farm acts. However, the author says that the farmers need not be concerned about the dismantling of the MSP regime because of various reasons. So let us look at the reasons provided by the author that the farmers should not be apprehensive regarding the passage of these three farm acts. The first and foremost reason that the farmers should not be apprehensive is that these farm acts have not done away with the minimum support price regime or the public procurement that is done by the government of India. So these farm acts do not talk about the MSP regime at all, and they have not done away with the MSP regime. However, the farmers are apprehensive that in the near future the government is going to completely stop this MSP regime. Further, the author argues that these farm acts provide alternative trading channels to the farmers to sell their agricultural produce outside the agricultural produce marketing committees or the APMCs. And under such an arrangement, the farmers are now allowed to sell their produce in the trade area, and this can include farm gate, factory premises, godowns, cold chain infrastructure, etc. And the farmers still will have an option to sell their produce in the APMCs at the prevailing MSPs. So the author says that the passage of these three farm acts have only increased the options of the farmers to sell their farm produce. Further, the author says that farmers are presently dependent upon the Food Corporation of India for the purchase of their agricultural produce. And we all know that the Food Corporation of India purchases the agricultural produce from the farmers in order to provide the food under the public distribution system. So, in this regard, the author says that the Food Corporation of India is equally dependent upon the farmers to procure food grains that needs to be sold through the PDS ration cards. Also, we note that the right to food is now a legal entitlement that has been provided under the National Food Security Act of 2013. And as such, at this point of time, when the right to food is a legal entitlement or a legal right recognized by the National Food Security Act of 2013, it is unimaginable that the Food Corporation of India will stop procuring food grains from the farmers who are based in Punjab and Haryana. And as such, the farmers should not be apprehensive of these three farm acts that have been passed by the Parliament of India. So, what should the government do at this point to stop the protests from the farmers? So, the author says that it is quite important that the government reaches out to the farmer groups and assures them of the indispensability of the MSP procurement system, and that such MSP procurement system will not be done away with in the near future. So the burden here lies on the government of India to convince the farmers and allay their apprehensions. So these are the key points highlighted by this article, and with this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this editorial on page number 6 talks about the Iran nuclear deal and how the new president-elect of United States of America, Joe Biden, must go back to the nuclear deal without expecting further concessions from Tehran or Iran. Now, you might be knowing that in the Daily News Simplified of 30th November 2020, we have discussed the killing of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was the Iranian nuclear scientist. And in this, we had learned about the role of Israel in this regard. Further, we have talked about the relation of the killing of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh at this point of time and the election results of the United States of America. So, before learning about the key points discussed here related to the Iran deal, you should first go and understand different aspects of the killing of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh and the present geopolitics that is at play in Iran. And you should do so from the Daily News Simplified of 30th November 2020, where we have discussed these aspects. And after that, let us look at what will happen to the Iran nuclear deal and what is expected by the new president-elect of United States of America, Joe Biden. Now, you might be knowing that the Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2015 under the Obama administration. And United States of America, along with other international powers, which is famously known as the P5+1 deal, had signed a nuclear deal with Iran, and both Iran and the US were cooperating in war against the Islamic State in Iraq at that point of time. However, we all know that the Donald Trump administration had pulled US out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action or the Iran nuclear deal. And the Trump administration had once again reimposed the sanctions on Iran. So the editorial argues that when the new president elect of the United States of America assumes presidency, one of the most pressing diplomatic challenges that he will face is related to Iran. Further, we all know that Joe Biden has promised to take the US back to the Iran nuclear deal. However, it has been said that any such move by the President of the United States of America would meet strong opposition from its allies in West Asia, including Israel and Saudi Arabia. Further, already tensions have escalated in the region because of the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was the Iranian nuclear physicist, allegedly by Iran. And we all know that Iran has blamed Israel for the attack, and US intelligence agencies have also confirmed the involvement of Israel in this regard. So, Iran, as a consequence, has vowed revenge from Israel. So, it is being said that any retaliatory action by Iran could cause a further flare up, and it can even lead to an open war. And this is likely to limit the diplomatic options that are presently available for the Biden administration. So, because of the assassination of the top Iranian nuclear physicist, allegedly by Iran, and if Iran retaliates, it will reduce the diplomatic options that are available with Joe Biden regarding the Iranian nuclear deal. Further, the editorial argues that Joe Biden, after elections, had said that he will seek to extend the restrictions on Iran and discuss the Islamic Republic's malign activities in West Asia. So, this argument suggests that Joe Biden would want some amendments to the original Iran nuclear deal. However, the editorial here cautions that the new president elect should learn lessons from the Trump administration approach towards Iran. Now, we all know that the Donald Trump administration had pursued a policy of maximum pressure of bringing Iran to the table. However, Iran had resisted such move and did not come to table to talks as was expected by the Trump administration. So simply the Trump administration wanted to corner Iran and cut its ties with different countries in the region so that its options are limited and finally it will come to talk. However, such a thing did not happen. And because of such policy of maximum pressure that was followed by the Trump administration, the US and Iran were on the brink of war at least two times. So we all know that the Iran had shot down an American drone over the Gulf in June 2019. And in retaliation, we note that the US has killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January this year. Further, Iran has been attacking the allies of United States of America, and we note that it has attacked two oil facilities of the Saudi Arabia. So in this regard, the editorial cautions that it is in everybody's interest that the nuclear deal is once again revived. And this will stop Iran from further escalating the conflict in the region and will restore some order in the region. Further, the responsibility on the President-elect of United States of America is that he has to reassert himself and will have to stop its allies from launching more provocative attacks on Iranian regime figures, etc. And we note that recently one of the allies of the United States of America, Israel, has assassinated the Iranian nuclear physicist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. On the part of Iran, it should observe strategic patience and give diplomacy another chance. Now, you might have seen that the points that we have taken in this discussion were all mentioned in today's editorial. So, this highlights a particularly important aspect of newspaper reading. And this shows that the editorials that are given in the newspaper are extremely important because they talk about the different aspects of an issue that is ongoing in limited amount of words and with much clarity. So, for example, if you just read this editorial that is given on the editorial page, you will be able to gather decent amount of points related to the Iranian nuclear deal and what to expect and what are the hurdles in front of the new president-elect of United States of America. So it needs to be emphasized here that reading the editorials related to important issues is very important in the newspapers. With this, let's take up the next news article now. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and this is the question for the day.